This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
Background. John Fitzgerald Kennedy was the 35th United States President. Upon election as the presidential candidate for the Democrats, Kennedy used the term New Frontier in his acceptance speech in 1960. The term was adopted as the party's slogan to try and inspire the citizens and win their support. The term later developed to be a phrase to represent Kennedy's administration policies. On the other hand, Great Society was a term used by President Lyndon Johnson as a set of domestic policies and programs in the United States. Head Start. This initiative was announced and introduced by President Johnson on May 1965. The initiative was then known as Project Head Start. The program started by having children in low-income groups in the United States attending public schools. The president, having experienced education problems as a former teacher, wanted education to be the cornerstone of his programs. The initiative saw over 560,000 children benefit during the first summer. Peace Corps. It was on October 14, 1960, when the Peace Corps program was first mentioned. Addressing students at the University of Michigan, Senator John Kennedy, on a camping tour, urged the youths present to dedicate themselves to initiatives and actions of peace and development. The initiative was later approved by the Congress as an agency of the government. The young volunteers serve the nation as well as other nations to bring about peace and development. The initiative provides fresh graduates with real-life experiences and therefore equips them with relevant skills to face life bravely. Job Corps. Upon the assassination of John Kennedy, President Johnson seemed to conserve Kennedy's legacy, urging the citizens to continue with what Kennedy had initiated. Kennedy had started a war on poverty among the Americans. Johnson had to continue with the war against poverty. In 1964, Johnson initiated the Jobs Corps program. It involved training that equipped the poor and unemployed with skills for jobs. The program provided financial information on loans to rural families as well as business people in urban areas. Civil rights. On June 11, 1963, John Kennedy addressed the nation on civil rights. He introduced the Civil Rights Bill, which later came to be the Civil Rights Act. The act sought to make sure that every American received facilities that were open to the public. Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act was sent to the United States Congress by Johnson on March 17, 1965, and was later passed by a massive vote by Congress. New Food Stamp Program. This initiative was passed by the Congress under the leadership of John Kennedy. At its inception, the program helped close to 400,000 citizens. The program involved the citizens purchasing a stamp for accessing foodstuffs. Medical aid for the elderly and poor. This program was initiated by President Johnson. During his reign as president, Congress enacted Medicare, which was a health insurance program designed mainly for elderly citizens as well as the poor. Aid to Latin America. On May 27, 1961, President John Kennedy authorized aid to Latin America when he signed the bill that provided for close to $600 million. This was an initiative that would see the United States support Latin America financially. Aid to Education. This was an initiative of President Johnson. In 1964, the president fulfilled his promise: aid to education. Aid to Disadvantaged Neighborhood. This initiative was started by President Johnson. The president also ensured that the tax cuts which had been introduced by President Kennedy benefited the citizens. During President Johnson's rule, the Pollution Control Bill was passed on September 15, 1965. It is during President Johnson's rule that several acts were passed to tighten standards of air pollution. The following acts were passed: Clean Air Amendments Act, 1966, the Air Quality Act, 1967, and the Clean Air Act extension of 1970. President Johnson also initiated the decreased immigration limits. In 1965, during the reign of President Johnson, the Immigration and Nationality Act's amendments were made. These amendments sought to abolish the national origin quotas and therefore made migration to the United States easier. This coursework on comparing Kennedy's New Frontier and Johnson's Great Society was written and submitted by a student just like you. The Ivy Panda Samples database hosts thousands of works similar to this one, on various subjects. Visit ivypanda.com to find what you are looking for.